Hello, I'm Richard Schickel. I'll be doing the audio commentary for Raoul Walsh's The Big Trail. This was a super epic Western in the vein of some silent pictures that had been done not long before it. Covered Wagon, The Iron Horse by John Ford. And it was intended to be that kind of a picture that told in broad, sweeping terms the story of the pioneering American West. The dedication that you see before you here is a fairly accurate representation of what the producers wanted this picture to mean to people. It is, I think, a movie that requires us to give it a little bit of a break. It was made extremely early in the sound period, 1930. It was made in this remarkable new format, which Fox called grandeur, but which we know better as CinemaScope. In point of fact, 23 years later, after this picture was made, they were using the same camera heads on their first CinemaScope production, which was The Robe in 1953. So I imagine the format was doomed in part by the fact that they didn't have a technique for squeezing the image onto a 35 millimeter print. This is 70 millimeter, of course, and then making it unsqueeze in the theater. It would have required Fox to buy special projection equipment for, I think they thought, about 100 theaters in the major markets. This was the beginning of the Depression, and William Fox was in deep trouble with his studio, and the upshot was that they only managed to project it in grandeur, or CinemaScope, in 2 theaters, New York and Los Angeles. For us, of course, the major historical importance of this film is the presence in it, in the leading role of the man on the horse there, John Wayne. John Wayne was an extremely young man. He was born in Iowa, came to Los Angeles, lived in the Valley as a young man, went to the University of Southern California as a football player on a football scholarship. And after a couple of years was injured and went to work at Fox, where he was noticed first by the great and irascible John Ford, who had plans for him. And before this picture, Wayne had played, I think largely uncredited, maybe with one minor credit, for Ford in a couple of pictures, 3 or 4 pictures, really. Ford had plans for him.
Will you undertake to lead us to that valley? I'd like nothing better, man.
He was a very beautiful young man, and I think that's something that we tend nowadays to forget about John Wayne. What a hunk he was. What a gorgeous, appealing young man he was. I mean, we think of him in his later incarnation, the John Wayne of Red River and The Searchers and those epic westerns of the 50s. As a heavy-set man, balding man, a patriarchal man, and a very angry man. I mean, there was always in Wayne's later, greater performances a great deal of rage, tempered occasionally by moments of good nature and all that. But he was essentially not the young man he was in this picture. How did he come to the attention of Raoul Walsh, the director of this film? Well, Walsh happened to be walking by the property department at Fox one day, and he saw this lovely guy kind of walking out of the prop department carrying a great big, heavy easy chair, which Walsh later said he was handling as if it was just a bunch of feathers. And he said, noticed he was very good looking, obviously was strong, and said to him, would you like to be in pictures? And as he always said, Wayne's reply was, I'd like that right well. Even though, of course, Wayne had appeared in a few pictures and was a friend of Jack Ford's. Raoul said, well, let your hair grow a little bit. Come back and see me in a couple of weeks. We'll let your hair grow out a little bit. He was wearing something close to a crew cut, I think. He did, and he looked good. And, well, Raoul put him in to a buckskin suit, not unlike the one he wears throughout this picture. He looked great. And he took some silent tests of Wayne. And what happened was he showed him to Winnie Sheehan, who was the head of production at Fox at that point. And according to Raoul, he said, well, can he talk? And Raoul said, well, sure he can talk. He's a college boy.
Listen, why don't you give up this plan and turn back?
There's no place to turn back to.
Why, there's a home in all the South that wouldn't welcome the daughter of Colonel Cameron.
True, we can hardly become.
And so pretty much it was done. I don't think that there were any talking tests of Wayne. And the picture began. It did not begin here. These scenes, which were shot on the river near Sacramento, were done sort of midway in the picture. Picture was very, very wide-ranging in its settings. They were in Arizona, they were in the Rockies, they were in Utah. They were all over the place making this epic picture. In that sense, no expense was spared. The actor on the right there is a man named Ian Keith. The man on the left with the big stocking is a comic Raoul seemed to like. He'd used him in at least one picture before. His name was L. Brendel. He was known as the, I think he was called the spurious Swede. To me, he's not exactly a man of high humor, but it was a tendency in pictures like this to have a kind of a low comic presence of some sort in it.
If you'll take me with me.
Well, I do thank you.
The actor here, the rather handsome man, is Ian Keith, as I may have mentioned. Keith was a Broadway actor. He had been a leading man in romantic pictures. And he is a figure of considerable ambivalence in this movie. He pretends to be a Southern gentleman. He's always talking about a plantation he has that he would like to take the leading lady back to, and she would have 12 servants and all that stuff. It's obviously, to us and to most of the other players in the picture, he's obviously a fraud. Keith had a subsequent minor movie career. Some leads, a lot of sort of villainy of the kind he practices in this film.
Oh, here. Who wants to buy my mother-in-law's stocking?
Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention. L. Brendel needs this foil, which is his large and considerably outraged mother-in-law. Trying to recall, I don't think she ever has a soft scene in this movie. Spends a good deal of time hitting L. Brendel.
Hand it over.
See, Mama? Didn't they tell you we would win? Oh, you big loafer. Get out of here. Spending my life's earnings.
Now, Thorpe, you get off my boat. If you set foot on it again, I'll put you in irons and land you at St. Charles on my way back.
There is an enormous amount of spectacle in this film. And this young woman, whose name was Marguerite Churchill, is, of course, and ultimately will be the love interest in the film. Come back to her later. We have to endure the comic spectacle of El Brendel getting his little brood across the mud hole. I don't suppose I really have to tell you where this scene is going to go.
Come on, Mama. I'll take you over, Mama. Come on, Mama. Come on, Mama.
Yeah! What are you trying to do?
My Mama, I want to carry you close so you won't get your feet wet.
You? I'll cross my own mud.
All right then, Mama, but let me help you. That's it, Mama. Come on now. Step on that board, Mama. That's it, Mama.
Okay, it does get a laugh. Rather wisely, Raoul cuts away from it. All right, here is Miss Churchill. She's been in Broadway shows. She will go back to Broadway a couple of years after this and have perhaps her largest success on Broadway in the original production of Dinner at 8, which of course became a memorable MGM picture in the early 30s.
Now you sit down and make yourself easy, and I'll brew your...
Now, we're about to set up here the essential element in what in those days people always called fighting love stories. I mean, in other words, he is going to make a social gaffe, and she's going to not forgive him for it, ostensibly. It's not the sister he thought it was. It's a total stranger. She's a beautiful girl. And she will simply not listen to his explanations. To her, he's just another crude frontiersman, a man of no manners, of no beauty of speech. He's just a frontier roughneck. And so she seems to be somewhat smitten by the Ian Keith character.
There's nothing to explain.
But I'm going to tell you anyhow. It seems to me you're forcing yourself on this lady. Is that how it seems to you? How else can I take it? It's nothing to me how you take it. But it matters a heap to me, ma'am, how you understand.
Perhaps not. But if it concerns Miss Cameron, I'll demand an explanation.
You will? Then speak your piece.
Mr. Stockwell, will you please take me to my brother?
Note the knife. The knife is going to turn out to be an important plot point in this movie. In fact, it's kind of interesting, I think, that Wayne almost never in the course of the movie draws a gun on another human being. He uses a gun in other contexts. He's a knife fighter. And that will have its effect not only within the movie, but in terms of promoting the movie after it came out.
The cabin in the wilderness.
My mind is made up, Mr. Thorpe. We're going with the settlers. You know my brother David?
Yeah. Hello, Dave. How do you do? Howdy, boy.
So, Zeke, howdy, Bill.
Hey, Tex. I've been telling you about this here boy Coleman.
Zeke is played by a veteran movie actor of the silent era and on into the sound era as well. His name is Tully Marshall. And he was kind of a reliable actor in small and medium-sized parts.
Bless now, wild heart. Oh, I've seen him do it 100 times, eh, Bill? That's another buffalo hide you owe me, Tex. You remember, Bill, that time up on the Snake River?
Wayne was acceptable with a knife. He obviously practiced with it and worked with it, and could do things with it in a realistic and persuasive form. That actor there is Tyrone Power Sr., not quite the figure his son, Tyrone Power, the much more famous leading man whose career took off slightly later in the decade. Power was one of 3 or 4 actors that producers insisted on bringing into this movie from New York. It was thought that with an inexperienced actor like Wayne, they needed veteran pros to handle some of the more dramatic aspects of the picture. This worked out very badly from the point of view of Raoul Walsh. He never talked about this picture with me, in his autobiography, with other interviewers, without mentioning the fact that Power and company were essentially drunk for the entire picture, therefore undisciplined, therefore difficult for him to handle.
Le conocen hasta en México. Vamos a tomarnos un trago. ¿Quieres comer?
What Raoul liked with actors, and he was very good with actors, were easily natural players, of which Wayne is a good, if somewhat, at this point in his career, untutored example. He's an actor who was, wonderful with James Cagney, with whom he made a lot of absolutely first-rate pictures, including what I think is the first-ratest of them all, White Heat in 1949. He was great with Errol Flynn, who was also just a natural actor, untutored, but just, a man who could make you believe anything on the screen. Raoul was never particularly fond of highly trained, highly reputable stage actors. He liked guys like Wayne, who just fitted in naturally and easily. I can't stress enough, it's 1930. No one was really quite sure of how sound pictures should be played. And so, in a certain sense, the louder the better was acceptable to people. Now we have the essential point that John Wayne will, as he's showing here, sign on to be the scout on this expedition, this trek across the wilderness, because he wants to be in close proximity to Mr. Flack, who he suspects of, with his friend, killing his pal along the trail. Raoul Walsh really pioneered a new kind of picture making, not just with widescreen, but with the flexible use of sound. Sound production had been very much a studio proposition because the cameras had to be so heavily blimped, actually put in little isolation booths which couldn't be moved. So that films became, overnight, just terribly static. But Raoul, on a trip in San Francisco, observed a Fox Movietone truck which was able to record sound anywhere. And he saw it on a street corner, recording an interview with a union leader who had his union out on strike and was explaining it. And he called the studio and said, "Here's the way we got to go." And they said, "You'd been drinking?" He said, "No, this is how we're going to make pictures." Using the truck, which had enormous flexibility, it could go anywhere, to make outdoor, on-location sound pictures. He did this in the film In Old Arizona. He was starring in the picture as well as directing it. It worked very well, except that in the course of shooting some big action sequence, the truck ran over something and was overturned and essentially ruined. So they had to beat a retreat back to Los Angeles, and they were hurrying to catch a train in another truck. At night, a jackrabbit jumped up, hit the windscreen, which did not have safety glass in it. It shattered, and glass went all over the place, most notably into Raoul Walsh's face and eyes. One eye was blinded almost instantly by this. And by the time they picked the glass out, it became clear to the doctors that probably vision could not be restored to that eye and that it should be removed. Typical of Raoul, they said, well, if you will accept some plastic surgery, we could give you a glass eye in place of the eye we're about to remove. And he said, no, don't bother with that. I'd probably just lose it in a fight. Later, when his friend, rival, whatever he was, John Ford, was having eye trouble, he was complaining to Raoul, I got to go to the hospital, I've got to have operations, it's going to take months out of my life. And Raoul just said to him, oh, Jack, just have the damn thing pulled out and go with one eye. That's what I've done, and it works fine. And he said Jack didn't speak to him for several months thereafter. He was so appalled by that piece of advice.
Mr. Coleman,
Robert
this is my
Gray.
sister, Ruth.
Honey girl, it isn't safe to be sitting in a rocking chair when there's certain persons present.
I think you'll find we have everything.
It should not be misunderstood that Raoul Walsh was some kind of roughneck along the lines of some of the characters in this film. Walsh had actually been born in New York. His brother George also went into the movies as an actor. And Raoul, as a young man, had a kind of wandering spirit and had gone west in search of adventure. He had been a cowboy. He had done all sorts of work of a humble nature on the plains. He had drifted into show business because he was an expert rider. And prior to coming into the movies, he had been a rider in stage presentations of The Klansman, which was the noxious book on which D.W. Griffith based his legendary film, The Birth of a Nation.
Won't get very far in that.
Yes, sir.
On some traveling clothes. Have a peek around.
Curiously, not long after those stints in the theater, Walsh went to work for Griffith, had him direct a kind of, I guess you might call it almost a semi-documentary about the Mexican bandit Pancho Villa, which was Walsh's first directing assignment. That was in 1914. His career persisted for exactly 50 years. He made his last picture, A Distant Trumpet, in 1964. It wasn't a bad Western either. Walsh had also been an actor. Perhaps most notably, early in his career, he was John Wilkes Booth in Griffith's Birth of a Nation.
You call that thing you got there?
Oh, his name is Jack.
Jack? Oh, yes. But that's
He was devastatingly handsome, too, in those days, and looked a great deal in makeup like John Wilkes Booth. But did the whole number, sneaked into the box, shot the president, leapt to the stage, shouted Sic Semper Tyrannis, and, like Booth, caught his spur in the bunting of the presidential box and, like Booth, hurt his ankle. Didn't break it the way Booth did, but he did do himself harm. So in the 20s, Raoul pursued a kind of a double career. He was very largely a director, but he did act fairly frequently. The most notable silent films he made are perhaps the very imaginative and special effects heavy Thief of Baghdad, which starred Douglas Fairbanks Sr., who was a great pal of Walsh's. He also made what I think is one of the great anti-war movies of that period, What Price Glory, which is an enormously touching film. I think infinitely superior to his friend and rival John Ford's sound version of the picture. As an actor, Walsh had perhaps most notably appeared opposite Gloria Swanson in Sadie Thompson, which is a version of the Somerset Maugham story Rain. Again, he was an extraordinarily handsome young man. I think he might well have pursued a double career as an actor and a director.
See you next year.
You're just as handy with a gun as you was.
I can drive a nail at 30 feet.
Yeah. Well, as long as you can't go and you can't stay, wouldn't be a bad idea if you was to go along with me.
Well, that sounds reasonable. Where do you happen to be headed for?
Well, anyways, it's out there while there ain't no noose a-waiting for you.
Well, Windy, I trapped him with his jug down at Joe's.
Hey, Wendy, there's a lot you steal civilization for a long time. Hey!
Trying.
Back up here, will you? Back up. I gotta finish that with Wendy. Hey, that's what you get for not drinking.
This picture, is probably worth noting, was a picture in which Rowell had a good deal of power to improvise. The script is attributed to a name that's a fictional name, Hal Everts. In point of fact, it was written or sketched out or outlined or whatever it was by Max Brand, whose real name was Frederick Faust. Man who written 85 pop novels, probably most notably, he was the creator of Dr. Kildare. He was, I think, no more than a story man on the picture. I don't think he wrote a great many scenes. So Rowell had the right and, in fact, the duty imposed on him by Winnie Sheehan to do whatever he needed to do to create scenes, sequences, probably some dialogue.
Oh God, our Father, as you sit on high and look down on us poor mortals, forgive our frailties. I am about to lead these people into a wild and dangerous country. Give me strength.
Rowell had a funny habit when he would talk about working on pictures. He'd come to a scene and he'd say, we need something here. But he would never say we need some dialogue here. He would always say, we need some titles here. I mean, he had been so used to doing silent movies, which, of course, did their dialogue in the form of intertitles. He always called them titles, well into the 50s. I have the feeling, and maybe this is as good a shot as any, although there are dozens of such shots, that Rowell's stress in this movie was on spectacle. It's not a picture, as opposed to a lot of his pictures, with many close-ups. In fact, I can't even actually recall any close-ups in it, though there must be a few. He was really going for big screen scope. He is often in wide angles and medium shots, and he is not going for the kind of lively, fairly fast-cutting manner of his later and I think better talking pictures. But he certainly had a sense of and a pleasure in the scope of the prairie, the big skies of the big sky country that he's shooting in. And I think especially if you see this picture on a big screen. It's quite marvelous for all its kind of awkwardnesses and, corny humor and rather often placid pace. There is a lot of terrific widescreen imagery, which, of course, no one except a few people in New York and Los Angeles ever got to see. Also worth noting, since the picture was to be released in a normal 35 millimeter version as well as the 70 millimeter scope version, every shot was repeated twice. First for 70 millimeter, then for 35 millimeter. So it was a difficult and probably inordinately lengthy shoot, because even though Raoul was very fast with the camera, he still had to do 2-for-1s on every single shot he made. This material here was shot around Yuma, Arizona, as will be the immediately subsequent early sequences of the wagon train setting out and in its early stages of its passage. Again, we're in the desert, not far from Yuma, which was a place a lot of Western dramas in the 30s and 40s were shot. It was not all that far from Los Angeles, and it was good country for shooting.
Howdy, Dave.
Hello, Coleman.
Oh, Miss Cameron. Glad to see you took my advice about saving that pretty dress. You look so nice in it, it'd be a shame to spoil it.
While folks are trekking their way westward here, we might mention the other innovative thing about this film, actually more important in the immediate history of the movies, was the sound production of this film. And this was something Walsh in particular pioneered. That is to say, sound had come to the movies famously in 1927 with Warner's production of The Jazz Singer, which was, of course, very studio-bound. Sound equipment had to be muffled because the cameras made noise, so the cameras had to be put into actually little padded cells so that their whirrings couldn't be picked up by the microphone, which implied studio production. You couldn't really take those cumbersome cameras and their rigs out onto locations. Walsh had been in San Francisco to see a Fox Movietone unit in a truck, and it's very light camera, which it simply unlimbered and plugged back into the truck and shot a picture. Raoul was galvanized by this. The upshot was that Raoul went out, this was in 1929, to do a picture in Old Arizona, in which he was going to play the lead, the Cisco Kid, as a matter of fact. And what happened was that, of course, the sound equipment in these trucks was totally adaptable to the kind of shooting we're seeing here. You could take it out and you could track along with it, and you could get people talking in a natural context and behaving just as naturally as John Wayne is behaving in this sequence. So it was an enormous advance for sound movies. And indeed, the Fox Movietone system replaced what had been the standard of the industry, which was the Warner Vitaphone system. The Vitaphone system, curiously enough, was a sound on disc proposition. That is to say, it made gigantic phonographic records of the sound it recorded, which had to be sunk up with essentially silent movie in the projection booth of the theater. You can imagine that presented a lot of problems in synchronization for the hard-pressed projectionist. Fox Movietone put the sound on film, where it has remained ever since. You know, a little magnetic track running alongside the image in perfect synchronization. There was a feeling for a time that the Vitaphone system produced superior sound quality, but I don't think we can have any real complaints about the sound quality in the Big Trail. I mean, everybody sounds fine and is perfectly comprehensible.
I don't like this man Coleman. If he asks after me, you tell him you never seen me till you signed on this trip.
You're too late.
Why?
He just speak to me, and I tell him we was all friends.
What? Ha! What do you use under your hair instead of brains?
You need no brains. You got keys.
No. You're talking sense.
This is a very pretty shot, and I want to call attention to it, and there are a number of them in the picture, because I think Raoul, when he was doing Westerns, and he made a bunch of them, I think he had a real, probably based on his experiences as a younger man, he had a real feeling for Western landscapes. I think he loved them. I think he was willing to slow down his pictures so that he could show us the countryside and its kind of virgin splendor in those days. And I've always found, oddly enough, Raoul's Westerns to be somewhat statelier than his urban crime pictures and urban comedies, which are very, very lively and funny and visually quite a different proposition from the Western pictures he made. Just an observation, but I think it's a true one. If you look at Raoul's Westerns, they are always ready to stop and show us something movingly beautiful.
No, you can't. Go in and snag her away from me.
I claim the fake.
With prejudice.
Well, Zeke,
Hello, boy.
Thorpe just stole my partner and left me dancing with myself.
Yeah? Say, boy, it just come to me a minute ago where I seen that there Thorpe before.
Where?
Camped on the shimmer with Black and Lopez. They're old friends.
Are you sure of that?
Dead Sergeant. So keep your eye peeled on him, son.
Well, I'm tired. I think I'll go to my wagon.
Certainly. Let me take you there.
Of course, we know, long before she knows, or is at least willing to admit it, that she's smitten by Duke Wayne and is suspicious of the Ian Keith character.
All it needs is a lovely woman to preside.
Someday you'll find her.
I have found her, Ruth.
Oh, please, Mr. Thorpe, you know, I've told you before that there can be no happiness without love.
But love will come.
Raoul was not always willing to spend a lot of time on deep dish romantic palaver. He tended to find some kind of comic relief to sequences like the one we've been watching.
Good night.
Good night.
Getting into dangerous country, Flack. So I'll be riding to the Pawnee villages to pick up some Indian scouts.
Yes, well, you're likely to lose your scalp out there.
I'll bet you a couple of wolf pelts I bring it back with me.
How long you been gone?
Little hint of a threat there.
3-4 days, a week maybe.
Back so soon? I thought maybe you wouldn't be coming back at all.
And just why did you think that?
Well, after I sort of took the dark-eyed beauty away from you, I thought you might be decamping.
Listen, Thorpe. I never quit a job in the middle of the road.
Oh, quite so, quite so. But after the girl quit you in the middle of the road...
Say that again, Mr. Thorpe. I know who you are now. And I know why you quit the Cimarron country, too.
Oh, well, no necessity to have quarrels among friends.
Friends? You threw too wide a loop. Remember this, the three of you. I'm not your friend.
In directing John Wayne with these more experienced actors like Keith, at least at one point, Walsh simply had Keith pose a number of questions, scripted questions to John Wayne, for which there were no scripted responses written for Wayne. He let him improvise those responses, feeling that the naturalness of Wayne would supply whatever defects, would supply whatever was needed in the scene itself.
Well, Miss Ruth?
Now here's a little test for the tyro actor. He's got to do this farewell speech. And it becomes, very flowery, a very kind of almost poetic tribute to the open spaces and the open spirit with which Wayne needs to confront the vastness of this country that he loves so much.
But the part I like best is the night. Lying out there beneath a blanket of stars, with that old moon.
It's hardly great writing. It's a little bit flowery. But I think Wayne actually kind of triumphs over it. He just eases it along. He just does it as naturally as he can, with as little overt emotion as he can, but with real authentic feeling in it. It's possible. It's just possible. At this moment, in this picture, people said, hey, you know what? This kid can do a little bit more than just stand around and look great and move freely into action sequences. When he became a much greater star, he rarely had to deal with this kind of dialogue. I mean, he was famous for, cutting his dialogue as much as he could. And, making everything as easy and natural as he possibly could. But you know what? He handled that pretty well for a kid.
But once in the villages, he's safe, So don't you worry about him, miss.
Why should I worry about him?
I don't know, miss. I don't know. But seemed like as if maybe you was.
Not at all. He means nothing to me.
No, in course not. Good night.
Good night, Pete.
Now, somewhere in all of this, and I've been looking for it as I study this film, Ward Bond, already a buddy of John Wayne's, is in the wagon train. He's one of the guys driving one of these many, many Conestoga wagons. Wayne had come to Rowell and said, listen, I got my friend, and he's kind of trying to break into pictures too, and couldn't you give him a job? And so keep your eyes peeled, because one of the drovers here is in fact Ward Bond, who of course would probably become later in his career most famous as the wagon master on television. So, don't bother to write me, but I think you may spot him somewhere amongst the crowd there.
Watch him till he leaves the ponies, and then give it him in the back.
Okay, this was actually the last sequence shot in the film. It was in a place called Moesi, Utah, and that's a government herd of buffaloes. They were used, with permission, of course, on the condition that none of the buffalo would be hurt or killed in the stampede. Again, it's a big Rowell scene. To me, it's a little bit of a mistake to undercrank, especially John Wayne's single shots on the horse. I think everybody's moving fast enough without undercranking the imagery. But it's a big scene. It's a big scene which was achieved with some difficulty. Rowell tells stories in his book of being on this location, and the company was plagued by pack rats, and they made off with Tully Marshall's false teeth, with another actor's toupee, with Miss Churchill's earrings, and so he had to do some improvising in some of the more intimate scenes in the sequence.
Leave only the wheelers hooked to the wagons. Once you take to the water, well, it's every man and critter for himself, eh? Get out of here. Get out of here. Go on.
Mr. Fleck, how can I get my mule Eustace across?
Well, get your mother-in-law to ride him, eh?
Mr. Bascom. Mr. Bascom, I don't like that fella.
No?
He's the kind who will pat you on your back to your face and then laugh in your face behind your back. And another thing,
Yes?
if he had a mother-in-law like mine, he would never laugh.
The hunt was a great success. We bagged our buffalo.
Hey, did you get your meat, eh?
Este es el mejor tiro que yo he visto.
Good. Well, we better shove it off, then.
Not completely certain where this sequence was shot, but I don't think it's the same river that we saw earlier in the film, the one that was shot near Sacramento. But it could be. Rowell was uncharacteristically silent about where he shot this, but it's a pretty good sequence. I mean, one thing we need to say about pictures like this is that it was a very pioneering film. We became used to seeing the sort of standard wagon trek Western as the years went by. They remained pretty much favorites through the 30s and on into the 50s. But again, it's pretty good stuff considering how early in the game it was. And, in particular there, that wagon being overturned by the onrushing rapids of the river. Pretty good stuff. In a certain sense, it's perhaps fair to say that this picture looks a lot better on a big screen than it will perhaps look on your home DVD. A good-sized image reveals a lot that we can't really see in a living room version of the film. It's kind of interesting to reflect on where John Wayne exactly stands in the long history of the Western. I mentioned earlier that he became, as the years went on, and particularly in the late 40s and 1950s, he became quite a different Western icon than he is in this very early film. He's much more patriarchal. He's much more stern, I think, especially with younger people. See his relationship to them in pictures like The Searchers. He's a large man by then. He's put on weight. He's got a gut. And he's all power in those movies. There's none of the kind of almost shyness that we perceive in this movie. At this stage of his career, here in the early 30s, the person he most reminds me of is the, at that time, much greater Western star, Gary Cooper, who had also this inordinate physical beauty and a kind of shyness that is manifest in John Wayne. I have a theory that most actors are essentially shy people, comedians aside, that acting is some kind of compensation, a way of hiding out for shy people. That was certainly true of Cooper, and it is whose picture, The Virginian, was roughly made at the same time as this picture of John Wayne's. But Cooper was by that time a much more experienced actor, much more experienced young star than Wayne was.
Johnny! Where's the camera and wagon?
You know, of the iconic Western figures of later years, he, I don't think quite compares with someone like Clint Eastwood, who didn't make all that many Westerns anyway, though he established himself with the spaghetti Westerns and his early and middle period American Westerns. Eastwood is I think, a more inherently forceful actor. There's a lot of inwardness to him, but the inwardness is, there's much more of a bottled spider quality to Clint Eastwood, I think, as a Western hero. There are realms of toughness inside of Eastwood that I don't think Wayne comes close to touching in pictures like this. There's also right from the start with Eastwood in the spaghetti westerns. There's a knowingness about him that's very powerful. There's always a quality in him of knowing more than he's letting on, more than the other characters realize until it's too late, of course. I don't think that kind of playing was yet within John Wayne's range at this point in his career. There's not a lot of subtext in Wayne's performance here. And in fact, there's not a lot of subtext in this picture. I think that was very largely true of sound movies in their very earliest days. They had a way of just giving you surface, as if the addition of dialogue for movie people was miracle enough. It was giving you more than they had ever been able to give you in silent pictures. On the other hand, silent pictures had a lot of poetic quality to them, a lot of unspoken quality to them. They had a depth, I think, that these early sound pictures did not have. And I think this picture, to a degree, suffers from that lack of subtextuality. It's all right there on the surface.
Enough smoke signals for several days.
Yes, well, I see them.
I'll skirmish around with the Pawnees for a few miles.
Well, go on. There ain't no one keeping you.
No, but you'd better keep Thorpe and Lopez here.
Why?
I got a feeling that if either one of them leaves camp, they'll never come back.
What do you mean by that?
Just the way it sounded.
Hey, look now, eh?
Injun?
Lopez, try a long shot at him.
No fire! They're Cheyenne. They want to palaver.
They look to me as if they're out.
I think the sequence that's coming up here prefigures, I think, a much more famous scene that Wayne would do about 15 years later for John Ford in Fort Apache. It's the scene of the parley with the Indians. And in that movie, he is trying to be the peacemaker where Henry Fonda is determined to have war with the Indians. And it's a much richer scene, but it's shot not dissimilarly from this one. And it is a, I think, very characteristic Wayne scene. Thinking back on his later films, he is often the only man who has a relationship with the Native Americans, a mutual trust with them, and can speak for the often outraged, puzzled white invaders of their territory.
This is Black Elk, an old friend of mine.
Do they mean peace or war?
Peace, as long as they march straight through the Cheyenne country without stopping to settle. Bah.
Wayne was always uncomfortable, especially in these early days, with the identification of him as a Westerner. He was just a kid from a small Iowa town who'd been brought west by his pharmacist father and had settled in the valley, just east of Los Angeles, lived a rather humble existence there, and was not a Western character in his own mind, or in the minds of anybody else. It was something that he became, I suppose, as an accident of his accent and his general appearance. But he was always uncomfortable to be identified in these days as a cowboy. In later years, of course, he became an extremely knowledgeable collector of Western materials. He had one of the finest collections of Kachina dolls, the Hopi icons in the nation. He was proud of his acquired knowledge of Indian customs and Indian ways.
Why should you care?
Listen, girl. If anything happened to you, it'd be like throwing my heart to the wall. Don't worry, it's black elk in some of his braids.
Were you saying that I'm your squaw?
Seems like that's what he's driving at.
Well, you tell him that you don't want me for your squaw.
I've never told Black Elk a lie yet. He knows my tongue is straight.
There's a lot of good nature in this performance by Wayne. I mean, I love the way he's playing this scene with his co-star. There's a sort of sweet, self-aware humor in how he's playing it, and it works.
He is thirsty. Yeah, he is thirsty.
A little dubious about this scene. I mean, how big a forest is that they have to cut their way through it? But, one more hardship on the trail, the big trail, which is essentially about hardships more than anything else. Now, the scene we're coming to here was shot in St. George, Utah, and it's perhaps Raoul Walsh's biggest improvisation of this shoot. That is to say, it was not written in the script. This canyon wall was something he more or less accidentally came upon and said, say, wouldn't this be a pretty good thing to shoot? So he'd brought a lot of rope with him, he said in his autobiography, not quite knowing what he was going to do with it, but wanting to have it with him. And he kind of unlimbered it for this sequence, which he just went ahead and made up and shot as it went along.
You take Honey Girl from here on down, Dave. It's a little easier going.
Hold on. Careful, baby.
Now, Miss Ruth, you cling on to me.
Put your arms around my neck, Honey Girl.
A little tighter. A little tighter.
Little improv, I guess, by the Duke there. But kind of effective. Actually, it's one of the more believable comic romantic moments in the movie. But this is pretty good stuff. I mean, I think we had not seen material like this before. There's a similar sequence in a later 1950s Western, and I think there's one a little bit like it in William A. Wellman's Westward of the Women, but it's a big one, and a big difficult thing to manage and shoot. It's not enormously lengthy, as you can see. The piece is almost over at this point.
Thank you, Breck.
Well, 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 well. So I've seen that gal with her arms around your neck at last.
Yeah, but she sure unwrapped him when she got on safe footing.
Yeah?
You know, she don't care nothing about me, Zeke.
Man, you can never tell how a woman feels by the way she acts. There's all riddles, all of them, and you just gotta guess them. And no matter which way you guess, you're wrong. Looks like as if the way they're putting some of them outfits over there, they're gonna lose them.
That's a biggie. And that Walsh recalls as a total accident. I mean, the ropes and everything slipped, and he had 2 cameras on it, and by golly, he caught it. That is pretty clearly the second angle.
Zeke, did you hear that terrible crash?
Hear it? I seen it.
Yeah?
That was your wagon.
Oh, but was my mother-in-law in it?
No, she wasn't.
Oh, that's too bad.
What you say?
I said I am glad.
It's lucky for you that I wasn't, you loafing hound.
What you mean?
Because I was with your wife, Sarah, and she gave birth to twins.
Twins? Are they both mine?
Both?
Oh, Mama, are they boys or girls?
One of each.
Well, that's an almost acceptable joke there.
Papa and my Mama.
Well, yeah.
They got 2 for 1.
Yeah. Let's drink to the happy event.
Wait a minute. There was 2 events. They have 2 drinks.
Here, give me that jug. I'll take a pull at that myself.
Oh, one thing I forgot to mention. John Wayne almost lost this part in the first couple of weeks of shooting because he came down with, as he's often said, a horrendous case of the touristas. Lost about 18 pounds, was too weak to work, and just luckily was able to pull himself together and continue with the picture.
Well, who'd have guessed it? If it ain't Breck Coleman.
Howdy, Jim.
Where'd you blow in from, boy?
All the way from the big river.
On that.
How long will we go to camp here?
Well, just as long as it takes to fix up the outfit. Bascom, you tell them pilgrims of yours there's 500 miles of desert ahead of us. And them that don't like what's coming to them, now's the time for them to turn back.
Underacting was not part of Tyrone Power Sr.'s arsenal. Well, here's a little tender Raoul Walsh sequence, all the little animals birthing away. In later years, Raoul moved over for what I think was the more distinguished part of his career as a director at Warner Brothers, and he was pitching a story to Jack Warner and said something about, it's got a, it's really got a really lovely little tender love scene in it. And Warner sort of snorted and said, your idea of a tender love scene is burning down a whorehouse. I knew Raoul quite well in his last years, and he was a lovely man. He had a raucous sense of humor. He loved pranks and practical jokes and all that sort of thing. He was very fatherly with his actors, most notably, I think, Errol Flynn, who did some of his best work for Raoul Walsh in the 40s. But there was also about him a very tender, sweet side. It's exemplified by, that scene with the little animals. It's springtime and they're coming into their season to bring the new children into the world.
Deal me a hand of them flapjacks.
I don't think he was a great romantic in the conventional sense. I mean, with, soft, sweet love stories. Although one exception to that would certainly be the great Strawberry Blonde with Cagney and Olivia de Havilland. But I had a letter from him not long before he died, in which he spoke of the twilight coming down and his recollections of people he had loved through the years, sweet talk about his wife, who was a lovely lady. So there was a kind of soulfulness about Raoul Walsh that touches a lot of his work. I mentioned the way he romanticizes the physical spaces of the West. And I think that's simply an aspect of this quality that he had. He was not a sentimentalist about the West, but he was a great appreciator of it, as he was a great appreciator of feminine beauty, of soft feelings between men. He was nowhere near as overtly sentimental as Jack Ford was, and I think that's much to Raoul Walsh's credit. I've always found the way he would avoid, as Ford never avoided, all the Irish soldiers of the lower ranks, bawling sentimental Irish tunes around the bunkhouse. That was not something that was part of Raoul's lexicon on the screen. But there was great sweetness in the man and great softness in the way he treated even me as a young critic and a young guy making among his first films with Raoul.
So Coleman find himself a squaw, eh? Zeke, you old whiskered Cupid, you.
I loathe the very sight of you.
What have I done now?
You've made me the joke of the plains.
Me?
Who else tried to buy me like an Indian squaw?
Raoul Walsh was an authentically tough man. Even when I knew him, and he was in his 80s by then, he was a wiry man. He was still riding horses. He kept horses on a little ranch he had in the Simi Valley just outside of Los Angeles. It was a lovely ranch, He served all this orange juice from his little orange grove that he tended in that ranch. He had a charming wife, considerably younger than he was. And he was always game. When I made a film about him, he was always game to go around with that to colleges and talk with the kids about filmmaking. He was a great, not always entirely reliable storyteller. He was a very romantic man, I think. Not in the kind of smoochy-faced way of the movies. I think his representations of romance in film tend to be a little bit barbed, a little bit scrappy. But he was romantic about landscapes, the West, the past, and he had a rather poetic side to him. I recall a couple of letters he wrote to me in which he really contemplated the fact that he was approaching 90 and he was coming to the end of his trail. And he was very acceptant of it and very warm in his recollections of and reflections on the life he had led. And in those late years, he wrote an absolutely wonderful autobiography called Each Man in His Time, which recounts a lot of his best stories, but always in the context of a lot of respect for the people he loved, and he loved a lot of people. Actors like Cagney, Errol Flynn, John Wayne, so forth, remained his pals for life.
There's a wide open noose waiting for you in every river town. Thorpe, you...
Yeah, I suppose it's worth pointing out that after doing a number of silent films, this was Tyrone Power Sr.'s first and last talking picture. You can make what you will of that. Interesting contrast with his extraordinarily handsome son, who was a pretty good screen actor as well.
How's things, Coleman?
Just fine.
Say, Black Elk was telling me that all the Indians of the West were gathering to keep you all from passing through.
So they tell me.
Black Elk and the Cheyennes are going west to hold a powwow with the Shoshones.
Yeah, Black Elk tells me that it's almost certain that the Cheyennes will declare war later.
Likely. Old Pete Rubidoux was asking about you a while ago.
Pete? Where is he?
Camped at the spring yonder with his new squaw.
I think I'll ramble down and see him. Say, Henry, will you put a new cap nipple on this gun?
Sure will, boy.
A new trigger spring in the pistol.
All right.
I'll leave him with you while I go see Pete.
Be ready when you come back.
We are about to unite this loving and devoted couple in the holy bonds of wedlock. Hank Gillis, do you take this woman to be your lawful wedded wife?
I do.
Abigail Vance, do you take this man to be your lawful...
Another aspect of trail westerns, wagon train westerns, is they all have those basic scenes in them. There's a birth, there's a marriage, there's a death. There's a sort of notion that these movies should, besides presenting us with the spectacle of the westering epic, also had to keep reminding us that life in its more quotidian aspects continued apace. The ever-useful Zeke. It's a nice little part for Tully Marshall.
Hey, Flash.
Of the many, many, many movie directors I have worked with through the years, making films about them, Raoul is one I really think of often and think of with the most enormous fondness. He was really a good man. He was really a wonderful director, and a prolific one. I mean, he made close to 100 films, and made him in good spirit.
Well, you won't go to California with Thorpe now.
Why not?
He and Coleman just met in the brush, and Coleman shot him.
Are you sure?
I heard the shot, and I saw Coleman standing there over him. It suits me, too.
So he'll even do murder.
And so I pronounce you man and wife. And may peace and happiness be yours.
The cross-cutting between the peaceful wedding and the somewhat less peaceful events along the riverbank is, I think, pretty effective.
Coleman met Mr. Thorpe in the brush and shot him.
That's a serious accusation, my girl. Are you sure?
My brother saw it.
Men, we can't have cold-blooded murderers among us. There's the man that shot Bill Thorpe down like a dog. Lopez, go and get a rope.
He's always saying thar and whar. That's his idea of a Western accent.
It was Miss Cameron.
You, eh? So you'd like to see me hang?
Well, there's these wonderful stories about, finishing a picture. They worked on Saturdays in those days, and dragging himself home, finished the last shot of the picture. It's 10 or 11 or 12 o'clock at night, and he said you'd hear a thump on the front porch, like the Sunday newspaper being delivered, and you'd go outside, and there would be the script they expected you to start on the next Monday. That was the pace at which, for many years, he worked, and he did it uncomplainingly.
I was camped out pretty close to you, and I heard that little powwow you had with Thorpe.
Yeah, what are you driving at?
Just this. When a man begins to do a lot of talking about hanging, he'd better make pretty sure as to who's going to decorate the end of the rope. Get my meaning?
Well, Thorpe ain't nothing to me. It's no affair of mine.
By golly, close-ups. Hadn't thought of it, but I think, seems to me, these are the first close to close-ups that there are, and that's Ward Bond over there to the left. Darn if it isn't. Finally, there he is. Raoul Walsh, he was an extremely attentive director. He was inclined sometimes to maybe goof off a little bit if the picture was a truly routine picture of some kind. I'll never forget talking to Robert Mitchum about him, because Mitchum had been in a picture he did care about. There's one scene Raoul kind of nodded off. It was not a scene that interested him very much. But he was half awake, so he could hear the end of the scene. Mitchum said his last line. Raoul said, cut. And he looked at Mitchum and he said, how was it? Mitchum goes, well, it was okay. I dropped the lamp. He's testing Raoul. You drop the lamp, you pick it up, did it look natural? And Mitchum goes, yeah, I guess so. So, okay, print it. Now, that gives a false impression of Raoul, because as you can see from this picture, his choice of angles was extremely good. He knew how to put a scene together beautifully so it flowed nicely. And if you gave him something that dealt with honorable men pursuing honorable aims against difficulties, I think of, the Errol Flynn pictures like Gentleman Jim, where they died with their boots on. When you look at pictures like that, you're looking at pictures of great distinction done by a man of great character, great warmth, and great masculine virtue, by which I don't mean being macho. I mean being a good man and asserting those qualities in your work and in your life. Big country, big skies, and relatively speaking, small human beings caught and imperiled by the vastness of these landscapes. And the shooting tends to stress that contrast between the bravery of these almost ant-like creatures crawling across this vast empty space, and the threat, as well as the beauty of that space. And here is the threat. I mean, the water hole that's dry.
Oh, that's what it's I hope.
It's no use, man. She's all dried up.
Them settlers is dying off like rats. We're for moving on. Come on, Lopez.
Boy, they're scattered back all across the desert. We got to gather them up and shove them along.
Eventually, this picture will traverse every kind of landscape. We've seen buttes and canyons. We've seen riversides. We've seen now a desert. We will soon enter into mountain ranges. And that says nothing about the variety of seasons we're talking about. We've begun in the spring. We will move on through autumn and winter and eventually arrive at another spring. And in other words, this is about a year's worth of life cycle represented in this movie.
Get up there. Get it, Tony. Come on. Tony. Come on. Put your mind through.
Raoul, in his shooting here, is willing to take his time with things. I mean, he is not forcing this movie along. And considering that a wagon train made approximately 10 miles a day, think of that, crossing the treckless wilderness, it's an appropriate pace for this film. Here at last are Indians of a more menacing nature. I think it's important to understand that in all of his westerns, even They Died with Their Boots On, Raoul always treats Indians with enormous respect. There's no patronization. They are never merely sadistic savages. He was, in his later life, adopted by a number of Indian tribes, and throughout his life, he had as personal friends and colleagues, people who worked with him on his pictures, a number of Native Americans whose company he inordinately enjoyed. There was something, I think, in the basic Native American psychology that suited Raoul's. There is a wryness in the Native American sense of humor, an almost existential quality in it, in their natures and in their sensibilities, rather. And I think Raoul enjoyed working with them and enjoyed their company, and so it's a notable feature of his films that they're always played with great dignity and considerable warmth. Now, what we have here is again a standard feature of this kind of picture making, the Indian attack. Wow, that's a great shot, isn't it?
Whoa! What's all this? Engine signs! Hello! Hello! Hello!
What here is, of course, the standard retort to the hostile attack, which is circling the wagons. Now, people who are more expert in the ways of the frontier than I am have always appreciated the way this sequence is shot. In that, as you will shortly see, the wagons are not just lined up one by one. They are set in a sort of jagged pattern so that each wagon is in effect covering the other wagon, at least partially, which prevents the livestock from escaping, which gives people better firing positions to resist the attack. William K. Iverson, who was a notable scholar, particularly of Western and other genre American films, always said that despite the earliness of this film, that it's perhaps the best representation on screen of an Indian attack and how it might authentically have been mounted and resisted. And it's pretty good. As you can see, each wagon is a little bit pushed forward into the other wagon. There's no gap between the wagons in the way it's set up here. And of course, the restlessness of the livestock inside the improvised stockade is very effectively done. I really like that. I like the way that those animals move from one side of the enclosure to the other in a typically panicky way. Nice angles there. Again, as you will see in some of the closer shots, the Indian attack is a little bit undercranked so that the horses are moving faster than they, of course, normally would in reality. And again, I'm not so certain of that technique. It comes up a lot, not just in Raoul's pictures, but in other films of this period. It probably stems from the habit of silent pictures, which did not have a standardized speed of film moving through the camera. It was thought to enhance emotions, to both overcrank and undercrank certain sequences. And here's very visible. It was a convention of silent picture filmmaking that obviously pertained here into the sound picture era. In later day filmmaking, if a shot was fired, you would normally see the result of the shot, the falling horseman, let's say, in this case. I didn't see any of that in this picture. I mean, Raoul was just lining up people they were shooting, and if an Indian happened to fall off his horse within range of his camera, it was recorded. There was no tying together of shot and the shot's result. But again, the spaciousness of the vision there is terrific, I think.
Father, our good friends have perished here at the hands of the savages. Open your arms to them and care for our loved ones until we meet again on the other shore. Amen.
Well, Zeke, old Wendy's gone on another trail.
You see, you and me was
There is Wendy's gone on another trail line, kind of taciturn acceptance of death in the same way that all of the difficulties of this trek have been handled in the picture. You can't uniquely credit that to Walsh. I mean, the whole idea of Westerns is that heroism is understated and is not overplayed for big emotional effect. But still, it's a good little sequence, and that little prairie graveyard that's just going to mark this trail for the foreseeable future, is nicely positioned in that shot. Oh yeah, we forgot rain in our recital of the different hazards that the weather presents in this picture, but here indeed is the rain and the mud.
Come on, that wheel! Over! Get him going! Hey, Steve! Put the whip for All together! Wake them all!
There was in the souls of directors like Raoul Walsh a real feeling that picture making should in itself be an adventure. They loved locations. They did not resist locations. They always wanted to go on them when the studio said, well, you could shoot a lot of it on the back lot. You have to remember that 1930 was closer to the 19th century when these events transpired than the 1930s are to our own day. I mean, in other words, there were in Hollywood men like Raoul Walsh who had experienced at least something of the twilight of the pioneering West. They had vivid memories of it. There were legendary Western figures living in Hollywood at the time. Outlaws, famous sheriffs, and so forth who drifted into Hollywood looking for work in the Westerns, which were proliferated in those days. I think Bat Masterson was one of them. So in California, in Los Angeles, in the pioneering days of the movie industry, there was a kind of admixture of the pioneering days of the nation at large, as a whole. And I think that informed these Westerns. I think the firsthand knowledge of what it was like to have pioneered the Western states was very useful in making these pictures. Certainly the kind of people who worked as wranglers, as various factotums on these pictures, brought to the making an authentic knowledge and authentic experience. And I think it's very informative to these movies. And that, as your mud and rain sequences go, is a pretty good one. I mean, there is authentic strain in the animals, authentic strain in the players, the extras, the wranglers, who of course appear in the shots as if they were characters in the pictures. It's a pretty good sequence. Walsh milks it for all he can. I mean, it's a more lengthy and more detailed sequence than the more famous sequence of lowering the wagons down the steep side of the canyon that we saw earlier. It's kind of like the real deal here. You can certainly see it in the struggles of those horses. The film, all due credit, was photographed by Arthur Edison, who was a well-known cameraman of the time. specialist in this kind of picture, man who worked a lot at Fox, and more than realized his best photographic ambitions with this picture.
I got good news for you.
Oh, you're always bad news to me.
Get on your long underwear quick.
Why?
You're going in the snow up to your, way up, Mama, and hand me out my bear overcoat. Very useless. You're going someplace you won't want to sit down. It's so cold it'll freeze your hoofs off. You wait and see.
Think I'll go say howdy to the Cameron.
This is my best overcoat.
Well, I'd hate to see your worst one.
Hello, Gus.
Oh, hello there, Black. I'm certainly glad to see you back again.
What are you wearing the heavy overcoat for?
I'm getting all ready for that snow.
No, we won't be there for days.
Well, anyway, I'm going to keep warm while I can.
Where's the Cameron outfit?
Oh, we left them 4 or 5 days back.
Left them?
Yes, all the horses give out. They couldn't go on. 15, 20 wagons. They all went back to the fort.
I hated to tell you, son.
Zeke, why did you let the Camerons go?
Not my doing, son. Black knows I savvy Injun sign, so he sends me on ahead to scout. And when I come back, they'd all dropped out.
If Indians chance on them wagons, they'll kill a lot of them.
I'm afeared so, Black boy.
The way's clear ahead, Zeke. You scout them.
Yeah.
I'm going back for the Cameron.
Good luck, son.
Get up, Jenny!
They're useless.
Get up!
I don't know
A
who's
word here about John Wayne's career. As I mentioned earlier, he had been discovered, though not particularly exploited, by John Ford, whereupon he was found by Raoul Walsh, who actually gave him his stage name. He was, of course, Duke Morrison, Marion Morrison. Nobody dared to call him Marion. And Raoul said, Winnie Sheehan, we need a name for him. Marion isn't going to work, and Morrison's not a good name. He said, sounds like a preacher. And Raoul happened to be reading at that time a book about the Revolutionary War general, Mad Anthony Wayne. And he said, well, let's call him Wayne. So, I don't know what else to call him. We'll call him Mad Wayne. That's Raoul's slightly colorful recollection of the conversation. But I guess Sheehan said, well, we'll just call him John Wayne. Hence, the immortal name was born.
He did, eh?
But there was enormous resentment on the part of John Ford over, I guess, in effect, Raoul usurping his discovery. And for a period of, no kidding, 7 years, John Ford would not speak to John Wayne, would not return his phone calls, would not acknowledge that they had once had a kind of close, I suppose, pseudo-father-son relationship. He was punishing him, and Ford was a punishing man. He had a family who made pictures with him constantly, and you were either in that family or out of that family. And John Wayne, for daring to have made his first major film with a rival, was ostracized by Ford until he finally called him in 1937 to make Stagecoach. In that period, Wayne was condemned very largely to making grade B, C, and Z westerns at the Poverty Row studios around town. Made pretty close to 100 of those little movies, none of which was the least bit distinguished. He made a few appearances, generally in supporting roles, in A pictures at other studios. It's kind of notable few minutes in a Warner picture called Babyface. It's a really great little nasty movie. But basically, he had to wait for Ford to forgive him before his career could take off, as it did in Stagecoach.
That's when you're going to start this shooting.
You're just in time, Coleman. Did you find the Cameron?
Over yonder. What's the trouble here?
They're all against me. They're turning back.
No, you're not. We can't turn back. We're blazing a trail that started in England.
Here's another big speech It's like the poetic evocation of being a lonely guy on the prairie.
Through the wilderness of Kentucky. Famine, hunger, not even massacres could stop them. And now we've picked up the trail again. And nothing can stop us. Not even the snows of winter nor the peaks of the highest mountains. We're building a nation, but we've got to suffer.
I don't know about that building a nation stuff, but again, this is a speech that could have been much more badly done than John Wayne does it here. He is persuasive, or pretty close to persuasive, in his portrayal of this young man in this difficult moment.
Well, he's turned up again.
Parece que este desgraciado bonlequiano nos va siguiendo.
Well, he'll down the both of us. You've got to get him tonight.
But they can hear a shot at night.
They can't hear a knife.
They all know this knife of mine.
Well, here's a knife they don't know.
No. I'm afraid of that knife. I know where you got it. It will get us in trouble, sure.
How?
Because a dead man's knife is bad medicine.
It's the knife they took off the man they murdered, who was John Wayne's friend and who he's going to revenge, and so on and so forth.
There he goes.
Wait until he's bedded down. Then...
Old Breck will be grateful for his trail-wise common sense in the scene that's about to happen. And I suspect he can take care of himself.
You overplayed your hand that time, Lopez. Zeke, this is old Ben Griswold's knife.
Well, where'd you find it, boy?
Lopez just left it sticking in my bedroom. Their having it makes it certain that Black and Lopez did it.
No question about it, boy.
What did they do, Coleman?
Killed my best friend. I've been on their trail ever since.
That's a serious charge. If you're sure, we'll call a settlers meeting in the morning to try him.
You can call a settlers meeting to bury him.
What do you mean?
That I kill my own rat.
Sound production would improve. That's not the greatest wind effect anybody ever heard. But, they did what they could do with what they had.
I'm off on their trail.
You can't leave us here. You've got to see us through. He's right, boy.
Maybe it's all the way you all look at it. But those two men killed a man in cold blood. And they've got to pay. Not that I've got hatred in my heart. But that I'm the law out here, that's all. And the law is justice.
Again, coming up to a good speech, big
I'll
speech,
see him to the end of the trail.
and he handles it.
But then I'm picking up a new trail here.
In other words, besides being gorgeous, John Wayne had enough authority in this role to predict, quite a good future for it.
Yonder stands the great white mountain. And down below lies the valley I've told you about.
Coleman, you have fulfilled our hopes.
These pictures were made in the Rockies, which, again, Raoul just kind of stopped along the way and set up camp and made these scenes for the picture. It was somewhat unplanned.
In this valley of our dreams, we'll build our homes and serve thee, O Father, and our children's children shall praise thy name. Amen.
The way is clear ahead, all gentle slopes. So drive down, my friends, and settle it.
Lead the way.
Zeke will lead the way down. Our trails fork here.
You mean you are leaving us?
There's a trail I've followed for over 3,000 miles now, and I'm heading back to pick it up again and follow it to the end.
Coleman, you're the breed of man that would follow a trail to the end.
Thanks, Bascom.
Friends, we'll go on.
Boy, there's two of them. Bad ones. Now I'm going with you.
No, Zeke. You stay here and look after Ruth and her outfit.
Breck, you're not leaving.
Yes, Miss Ruth, I'm pulling out.
They say you're going to hunt down Flack and Lopez.
It's what I aim to do.
But you can't do this awful thing. Take 2 lives.
Frontier justice.
Don't go, Breck. Don't go.
The job I've got to finish.
Don't you see? It doesn't matter about them. I'm afraid for you. They'll kill you. They're everything in the world.
Convention of the stoic loner and the
thing has to be done.
woman who loves him and can't keep him from his destiny is, of course, a great convention of Westerns. And this is the scene where it is played out.
Oh, now. Come, miss.
I have the feeling that Tully Marshall's part got bigger and bigger in this movie because Raoul disliked all the other guys that had been imported to be in the film and preferred this movie veteran. Because he really is kind of the third lead in this picture.
I know that, boy. I know it. Now, come on, Dick.
We're coming now quite close to the end of this movie, and obviously these are a couple of guys who are not going to escape the grim fate they so richly deserve. But we should probably remark a little bit on the fate of this film. Released in 1930 as the Depression began to really bite in American life. William Fox and his Fox Film Corporation were in desperate straits. As I mentioned earlier, they could no longer afford the 70mm projections they had hoped for with this film, and which are so effective here. The picture went forth and essentially died at the Los Angeles premiere. The governor of California, introducing the film at Grauman's Chinese, blithely introduced it as What Price Glory. The picture was a disaster financially for Fox. And John Wayne, in his good nature and his youthful spirit, went forth on a publicity jaunt to New York and other eastern places. He was put into costumes that were ludicrous parodies of Western garb, which he mentioned at one of his press conferences. He resisted identification, which the studio had imagined for him as a Texas Ranger, which he, of course, had never been, nor had he been the All-American football player that they represented him to be. And then he rode into Central Park on a spirited horse that he'd rented from one of the liveries around there. And he could barely control it, and when a policeman tried to ride it, the horse bucked him and took off into the wilds of the park. Point being that John Wayne was disgusted by this sort of circus atmosphere and retreated to Hollywood as quickly as he could and vowed never to make another such junket, which apparently he never did in the rest of his career.
Yeah, Mill. I got a hankering to trail on down into Mexico. Old Bill Gillis done told me that...
As we approach here the very end of this movie, his reuniting with his beloved and his reunion with the community that he has served so nobly, I think it's worth pointing out that Wayne, even in those youthful days, was determined to preserve his, what shall we say, human authenticity. He would not be something he was not. He would be who he was in his nature, in public, and in private. And I think that quality saved him from his occasionally outrageous political positions, from the fact that he might have lost popularity as he aged and became less handsome.
The day that the wagon train left.
We always sensed in Wayne a sort of warts and all truthfulness. And nothing became him so much as his last years when, gaunt and ravaged by cancer, he appeared at Academy Awards ceremonies to present almost unbelievably the Best Picture award to The Deer Hunter, a picture that probably stood for everything in life that John Wayne did not stand for. But it was that quality of being true to himself within the roles he played, that made him such a beloved figure, even by people who were politically in violent disagreement with him. That would include me. He was a wonderful screen presence. Not a great screen actor, I suppose, but I almost hesitate to say that, because screen acting really depends on being there, being present in yourself, and cutting through the fictions that surround any kind of creation like a screen character, and giving people something that is authentic and believable. And John Wayne was such. And I must say, this last scene, set in some redwood forest somewhere, is really brilliantly conceived, because, what's a redwood but a living tradition dating back hundreds and hundreds of years? And here are these people who have fought to establish a human tradition within the context of this long and developing history. And it's a beautiful and touching fade-out clinch for this movie, The Big Trail. It was said that Miss Churchill took quite a shine to John Wayne in the course of this shoot, but perhaps we'd best not go there.